What's up, squad? It's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to hop in on a story about the latest development with BRICS. So, those that don't know me and see my content, no, I'm really not the biggest fan of BRICS. It really doesn't even make much sense to me. It's always kind of been like a vapid, more sizzle than substance type of concept. And it seems as though this framework or this grouping, this Goldman Sachs grouping, this corps have been kept around long enough to for basically those BRIC members to stuff their ideologies into it and try to create this vision that will help them compete in a geopolitical environment, and the foremost of that being China. What do I mean by this? Well, recently there has been extension of invitation, and basically next year they're going to be an onboarding of up to 6 new BRIC members, and those members are going to be Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Ethiopia, Argentina, and Iran. So it's interesting. So this is going to be the first major expansion beyond the core members of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, as I said, BRICS never really made six because those core members definitely have competing interests. But it's one thing that brings all people together, and that's money. So I really think this group has went from almost like a nothingness or a vapid sizzle more than substance grouping to almost a predatory lending group that's wanting looking to take advantage of the global south. And what do I mean by this? Well, the main proponent, I believe, of expansion has been China. And if you understand what China needs, oil, you'll see that China has been doing a lot of hugging in the Middle East, bringing these countries together, trying to build groupings with these countries. America has been busy putting pressure in the Indo-Pacific or the Asia-Pacific region more fervently, especially when it comes to Australia, South Korea, Japan, building those alliances, Philippines as well. But America has really been working on trying to surround what I call bear bait in China and the Asia Pacific and building alliances basically to confront China or at least to slow it down at any forceful moves it may make, whether that's in the South China Sea or Taiwan. And China has conversely is obviously saying, okay, we're getting a squeeze from both sides. We got American ramping up military pressure, building alliances. We have our needs for resources to keep our population going because everybody knows that the Chinese Communist Party of China had their whole shtick or their reason they try, like the reason why they are in charge in China is because they bring growth to the people. So it is very incumbent upon them to keep the growth machine going. And when you have America stiffening up alliances, America coming down on chip manufacturing and high technology that China is going to need to make its next step forward, China has to figure out another angle. It could reproach Mount with US, say, look, we're on the same team, we both want the same thing, we're not diverging at this point, but that is not the proud Chinese way. So they're going to double down and they're going to try to get their alliance grouping in the Middle East sorted, and of course compete for resources and offset up the reliance on the United States with exposure to United offset the alliance with United States and Europe with exposure to South America. And you can see that President Xi Jinping has been very close with President Da Silva in Brazil, and you just see Argentina coming to fold. Now, for wins and losses or how I see these things wrapping up, I definitely see the winners being the Middle East on this. You get Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Egypt in there. So this is Arabic, Islamic, Middle Eastern bump to BRICS right now. So their interests are going to be thoroughly reflected because they're going to have big demographic numbers with Egypt, and they're going to have a lot of investment with Saudi Arabia and UAE. And I think their Saudi Arabia UAE is looking to get into this where they can buy up some things and make investments and lend money, right? Lend money and get it back with interest. You have Ethiopia, who's been a relatively good friends with China. They have a really good relationship. So they're coming in the BRICS. Now, I'm not necessarily seeing they'll get exposure to the funding, to the relationships as well, and they have some domestic issues going at home. And I think what this BRICS is going to do is kind of shield these groups as one. These countries can align and try to prevent outside interference from the West collectively. Kind of not a EU per se or a NATO model per se, but kind of like you got my back, I got your back, and these countries can come together and support each other when it comes to UN votes, etc. And I think that's kind of what it's going to evolve into. So I kind of think that's where Ethiopia might get a little defense from this group. Argentina, I think this is a big win for Argentina. They get so much exposure, a lot of places to sell their great agricultural goods. Like them in Brazil can run the table with agricultural goods in this alliance because it's pretty much exposure to export, if you will. You're going to have some big economies such as China, India, and you have a lot of agricultural goods coming out of South America, as well as potential natural gas goods be coming out of South America, especially in Argentina, who supposedly has some massive shale reserves there. So to me, it's a great opportunity. Again, Argentina is in the dumps with this currency. They're economically wayward, and they really need some markets. So I think this is going to be a great bailout for them. And Iran, as I said, I think Iran is kind of going to be in that same vein as Ethiopia. This group might give them a little shield when America might come down with sanctions against them. This group, they might coalesce together. So it's an interesting group. It's an interesting expansion. But as far as losers, I really think the biggest loser in this is going to be Africa. I feel for some reason this is an arch around Africa, whether it's South America, North Africa, and Southern and Eastern Asia, where you have India and China. But you have this arc, and you have Sub-Saharan Africa right there. And I just got a funny feeling that it's going to be a lot of loans and investments put into Sub-Saharan Africa from this grouping, because I think what China has decided not to do is compete with U.S. for U.S. allies. They're not going to go to Europe and say, I think previously they did, but with the Russia-Ukraine war, America has really doubled down on this alliance during the Biden administration, I think. Or the Biden administration has really worked to forge strong alliances and pretty much company line with its allies in Europe as well as East Asia. And I think China's saying, look, we're not going to get anywhere in Europe. We're not going to get anywhere with Japan and South Korea. Who's left on the table, and let's try to get them in the fold. And I think that's what this group is going to do. So I hope this doesn't turn into a predatory situation where you have a lot of these countries getting Sub-Saharan Africa used to Middle East money, South American wheat, and Chinese industry, and not at the expense of their own development of their goods. I wish that Africa can solve more of Africa problems, especially seeing what's going on with the chaotic situation in West Africa right now, and ECOWAS to this point proven almost feckless, and the African Union in the same vein. So we'll see how that works, but who knows, it could be a heaven sent. I think it's going to be some competing interest in this group as well. I think this group has the making for basically a vehicle for China to kind of structure itself into the global world order, as opposed to the Bretton Woods world order that was established after World War II that's predominantly led by the West. I think this is China's way of trying to create a new world order in that. And I also wonder how long India and China is going to be lockstep. I definitely think they have two different visions. I think China is really trying to go head to head with U.S., And I think India, although I think they're a powerful player, I still think they're just trying to figure out a way to thread everything together. They're not so much into the hierarchical game. I think that China is trying to implement. And so we'll see. And it's going to be competing visions here. So I definitely think the Middle East is going to be a key game changer. Like I said, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt as a block together in an alliance. This is going to be really interesting. It's a highly diverse group, geographically, culturally, politically. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out, and there really is an overlapping interest for these new members. So congratulations to the new members of BRICS. It's going to be interesting to watch this story develop. Love to hear your thoughts. Please comment below. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.